Hello, all you Dreamloaders out there. Today, we welcome back Tyler Batson, the founder of Peace Made Public. And today, we're going to talk about creating space for peace, particularly creating healthy boundaries in this time of quarantine. So, Tyler, how have you been since we last talked? Oh, you are still muted.
There we go. You should be able to hear me now, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for asking. It's been interesting the past week. I think the last time we talked on episode 1, I was on like this high. I was like just feeling the opportunity in this crisis that we're all dealing with. And I put crisis in quotes simply to say that I believe it's both. I believe we are existing in a crisis, but that there are also great opportunities for peace, which to me, in my experience, just makes the most sense. And so I still have a lot of that bountiful energy to turn this crisis or turn people onto the opportunity in this crisis. Other than that, I mean, I've been monitoring myself and really trying to follow the steps that, basically practice what I preach, and really just getting ready to get into this first step. It's funny because I feel like everything kind of aligns, and knowing that I was going to be doing this episode on healthy boundaries, I feel like my boundaries really got tested this week. And so I was just like, all right, are you really going to do this? Or, are you just going to talk about doing it? And so I did. I doubled down and really, like I said, and like I'll continue to say to anybody who's listening, this is a daily practice. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to learn more about what the past 13 years of peacemaking and storytelling has given me, because that's not stuff that's just meant for me to keep to myself.
Absolutely. I do want to stop you just for one moment. Do you think you could work on improving your audio?
Let me take this off. Let's try to get this disconnected. 1 second. Is that a little bit better?
No, it's more clear. However, it's a little further out.
Give me just 1 second, okay?
Of course, take your time.
How about that?
I would say that's definitely better. If you could make it slightly louder, definitely that would be better, but so far that's the best.
How's that?
I would say that's pretty good.
That's good?
Yes.
Okay. I unfortunately can't hear you very well.
Oh no.
Everybody's adjusting to this new normal and technology, so I think I'll just listen closely because I can hear you. It's just not incredibly loud.
I am going to do something to improve that. Hold on.
Okay.
How is this?
That's better.
Better? Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so to dive right back into it, last time we were going over your 5 tips to bridge the gap between inner peace and world peace. And the first step was consent. And I know today we're going to kind of focus more deeply into that concept. So what wisdom do you have to share on that topic?
What's that?
What wisdom do you have to share for us today?
So first of all, I want to get into a couple of disclaimers. I've made a lot of notes here. I'm a writer as well, so notes tend to really help me get focused and make sure that I'm sharing the best information that I can. And I just wanted to first say, like, we're all triggered right now. No one alive has ever experienced this before. And the fear that we're all sort of existing in is likely to continue. You know what I mean? Like, these steps are a way to sort of integrate into your daily lives. This is not me telling you, like, this is going to eliminate all of your fears. No, this is something that you can use to integrate, to create a peace practice for yourself that has global implications. Because basically everything we do right now has global implications. This is not the only way to go about doing this. I also am not a medical professional. I'm not a pandemic professional. I am a peacemaker and a storyteller and a student of international development, and a researcher. So what I'm going to be sharing with you is going to be coming from very in-depth immersive research or lived experience. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. And that's why I really wanted to make Peace Made Public, this series that we're doing, participatory, to really get people involved, because I know that you have a lot to offer this conversation as well. And Josie, that includes you, because we're all coming at this new situation from a different angle, you know? And the reason boundaries in particular have been so important in my work is because of that fact. Like, we're coming at this from different angles, and every single person around us is coming from their own lived experience with their own insights and their own ancestral trauma, if you really want to get deep into that. You know, so there's a lot of energy around us, and balancing that energy can just exhaust us, frustrate us. We lose our patience, we lose our cool, we turn on people that we love, you know? So that's why this step is so important, because learning to develop those boundaries that will not just protect us, but protect the people around us is, in my opinion, an act of peace. You know what I mean? I'm curious to hear from you, Josie. Like, just hearing that, like, what does that bring up for you?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think right now, you know, as a globe, we're being put under all these different lockdowns. So we're physically putting up boundaries. And I think it's a really good reminder for us to kind of work on our internal boundaries. I definitely personally have on my own journey had to work with identifying my boundaries and respecting others' boundaries. So I think this is definitely a really good opportunity for us to look at this in more of a positive light of what can this experience bring us, since we're all experiencing this at the same time together. What can we learn from this?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like, prior to this pandemic, I feel like a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about sort of hover around the hashtag self-care world, you know? But I think what we're learning now is that what we once called self-care was, always has been, and will continue to be about boundaries. You know what I mean? And making sure that we're preserving ourselves. And right now, that self-preservation has just, like, really grown exponentially, because now we understand that this self-care that we talk about isn't just about decompressing after a long week. It's really about our lives, you know, and not just maintaining happy lives or balanced lives, but healthy lives, and lives that are responsible to the rest of the human race. And so when we start to think about it like that, we start to see that this really is an opportunity for peace, you know, because everybody is sharing the same experience. Everybody in the whole world, you know? And that is such a unique experience, because we are all suddenly much more able to empathize with every single person in the human race. Every single person, you know? And so creating the space to access that empathy and make it a part of our daily practice is what's going to turn this crisis into an opportunity.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to clarify, when you talk about boundaries, you're not talking about firm walls. You're talking more about
No. No.
Yeah, do you want to clarify a little more about that?
Yeah, so that's something that I wanted to talk about because speaking of social media, we tend to think of a lot of the insights that we get in our daily lives as it's micro content. You know, it's people who are sharing posts who I don't judge any of them. I'm one of those people, but there certainly are limitations to what that can give us. You know what I mean? And so you tend to see a lot of these people on social media mentioning boundaries like, I give 0 fucks, or excuse my language, like cut that person out of your life completely kind of attitude. And those are walls. Those aren't boundaries. Those are not healthy boundaries at the very least. And there are going to be extreme cases where you are going to have to eliminate people from your life like that. But what I want to talk about is the harder work, which is developing healthy boundaries, which is basically just a respect for your space, for your identity, that is going to allow you the clarity and the focus and the insight to be able to really create a peace practice that has a global impact. And I mean, I'm really excited about that. I'm because this is stuff that's hard to understand. And for me, and this is why I've done immersive peace research, like out in the field. I understand things by doing them, you know. That's the best way that I learn, you know. And although everybody has different learning styles, this is definitely an entry point that will get you comfortable with what can feel very uncomfortable, because we're going to be talking about some stuff that's going to, you know, call on us to get vulnerable about how we feel. Yeah, so I hope that clears it up. These are not walls. These are definitely not walls.
Yeah, that definitely cleared it up. Good.
Yeah.
So where do we begin? Where do we begin in this practical way of implementing these boundaries?
Are you excited?
Yes. Yes, I think it's really important that you know, not only do we talk about it on a theoretical point, but that we also talk about how can people implement this in their daily lives.
Yeah. Yeah. So another little disclaimer is, as we talk through this, as people listen to this and hopefully re-listen to it, because there's value in that, I think too, you will start to like get the clarity for what is your personal best when it comes to creating healthy boundaries. You know, everybody, and like I can't tell you exactly how to relate to every single person in your entire life. You know what I mean? So what I want to do is to go through sort of some sub steps to this particular step in my peacemaking life that I use every single day. And I tried to include ones that work for me, but also ones that are very general and easy to access. The first one is grounding. Press pause. Like, this is something that is so challenging for a lot of people, including myself. You know, before I started this peacemaking journey, I had a temper, I was angry, and I had a lot of that energy sort of like that just wanted to come out. And I think a lot of us are experiencing that right now. That fear incites us to feel justified in our anger or justified in our frustration or our impatience, you know, and that is not, that's not an act of peace, you know, that's an act of entitlement. And so one of the best ways that I've found in order to do that is to just ground. And that happens hopefully when things just begin to start feeling scary, you know. Put your phone down, step away from the TV, put the news away, turn it off. Don't link to that other article in the article, you know, like there are all of these different ways that are set up for us to just keep going until we burst, you know. And we can identify that in the world, right? Like in the article or in the news media or in our conversations, but we can also identify it in our body, you know, like we have like our bodies that are there that are linked to our mind, heart, body, and soul, you know, and you feed and you nurture one and you nurture the whole. And a lot of times when we know that we need to pause, our body will tell us. It'll come up as a headache. It'll come up as tension in your stomach. It'll come up as a quickened heart rate, or maybe you even have a shake or an eye twitch, you know. These are the ways that your body is telling you to pause. And you know, there are a lot of different ways that you can do this. You can take a deep breath. You can open the window to let some fresh air out, or in rather. Meditate or pray. One of the most basic meditations that I like to do is to light a candle. And all you do is you light a candle and you focus on the flame. It's the same premise if you're around a campfire and you notice yourself sort of spacing out and zoning out on the campfire itself. Well, a candle is just like a mini version of that. And in a dark room, if you can just focus on that candle, that meditation is so grounding. You can recite a mantra, you can chant, you can talk to yourself. I talk to myself all the time. And it's helpful. Like, and it's just basically telling yourself it's okay. You know, this is going to pass. This is not forever. I am safe. I am protected. Like, that's a whole other conversation that I would love to get into, maybe at another time. The idea of being protected by unseen forces, right? And, you know, protected by seen forces too, the people in your life. You could go for a walk, you could dance, you can write, visualize, like energy pulling in and expanding. There are so many ways to do this. And actually, I'm excited because you're actually beginning to set up sort of a network of people to support our listeners in doing this, right?
Yes.
Particularly around meditation.
Not even just meditation. Right now, we're kind of trying to build our community out, focused around spirituality, like not necessarily from like a cult point of view, but this like high vibrational community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so Dreamlode is actually going to be a huge resource for people who are interested in this kind of information, because you know, I can sit here and guide people and activate people to understand that, you know, peace is accessible to all of us. But, you know, if for those who are interested in meditation or think that they can't do it or think that, you know, it's too difficult, it is important to be able to have access to those resources that are going to help you meditate and get to that grounding that is so essential in creating peace in our lives. So Josie, thank you very much for sort of seeing that need, you know,
Absolutely.
and creating this network of supportive people.
I think it's one thing to have like an independent meditation practice or spiritual practice, but I think that only becomes amplified when you're part of a community. I had the privilege of staying in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and I studied at a yoga school for like about 3 months. Yeah. And I noticed just being around those positive people really helped me amplify like my daily practice. And I had the most clarity I'd ever had in my life at that point in time. So
Chiang Mai is an amazing place.
Oh,
I lived there for a few months too.
Yes, I think it's definitely somewhere everyone should probably go at least once in their life.
But that's the thing, is like there are definitely plenty of people who can't go to Chiang Mai or India or, you know, wherever the place of their dream is that they think of as a paradise. But there are people that you can connect to who have been there, who carry that energy with them. You know,
it's about creating these power grids across the world. And with this virtual technology we have, we can really be uplifting people, especially maybe people, you know, in the future that aren't, you know, so interested in the spiritual aspect of it, but that just want to be around a positive community. I think just being around the positivity is super powerful. Like regardless of what your beliefs are or what your daily practice is.
Yeah, spirituality is not exclusionary. You know, it's inclusive. It's you know, I have often found that atheists and agnostics are actually the most spiritual people that I know. You know,
do they know that though?
Well, they don't have to know it. It's just about the practice, you know.
Exactly.
It's about the practice. It's about creating these new tools that would allow us to rewire our brains, create those new pathways, and with each time we do it, those pathways in our brains are getting more and more embedded, so that it becomes easier for us to access them when that tension rises in our stomach, or when that eye twitch starts to happen. Quicker and quicker over time, you'll start to see, okay, I need to step away. Whereas, you know, now we're sort of like subject to the addiction of it, right? That's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to remove ourselves from that. And yeah, community is a huge way to do that. And one of the things I love about now is that this kind of information is accessible to introverts and extroverts and anybody in between, you know, because that's what like connecting with each other virtually allows us to do. It allows us to be ourselves. You know, it allows us to just speak up in like a Facebook Live like this. And it also allows us to step back and say, you know, I just want to observe. And that's what will help me to create those pathways and create that comfort, you know?
I do want to touch back on the topic of grounding. I know you kind of just sort of alluded to it. So one of the things I think that might be challenging for some of the people listening is remembering to ground in the first place. And I know a meditation practice definitely, you know, is that exercise of pulling yourself back to the focus. But besides meditation, do you have any recommendations to kind of help people realize they need to ground in the first place?
For sure. I need to plug in my computer though. So we're going to get technologically grounded and then I'm going to talk about that. All right.
Awesome.
So
okay.
Super quick. Brilliant. All right. So one of the ways to know that you need to ground, I mean, again, I'll speak for me personally. For me, it's all about my body. It's all about what I'm experiencing in my body. And a lot of times that involves just silence. And I know that can be scary for some people. The monkey mind comes out. But for me, it's just like, sometimes it can just be one deep breath, right? And that one deep breath is what, you know, the exhale is the knowledge. The inhale is the practice and the exhale is the knowledge. That's been my experience, where I will basically like inhale a deep breath, and then when I exhale, it's like, I need to go for a walk, or I need to take a nap, you know, or I need to meditate, or I need to eat something, you know, or I need to laugh, you know. A lot of us have this knowledge within us that will tell us pretty quickly what we need in that moment. I'm not encouraging everybody to develop a meditation practice. That's what works for me. But a lot of times we need to just experience our feelings, you know? And when those feelings start to feel overwhelming, that's when the grounding really takes precedent, you know, because we don't want to expand the fear. We don't want to expand the frustration. We don't want to expand, you know, our complaints or our fears about the world, these uncertainties, you know, and getting your feelings validated is one thing, but making the fear bigger is a completely other thing. And when we notice ourselves start to like fear or vent too much, or where it starts to, you know, create that tension in our minds or in our hearts, pause immediately, take a deep breath, go for a walk, take a soak in the tub if you've got one. It's just about creating a mindful practice that is going to allow you to understand what's happening in your body, so you can have a better understanding of what's happening in your head.
So you would say for our listeners that, you know, a good practice maybe today or throughout the week would be to be more observant, observe what it is you're going through and become more aware what you're feeling and what it is that you need.
Yeah. Our bodies are incredible tools, and a bigger conversation is about how many religions have sort of conditioned us to disconnect from our body, right? Because the body is a source of temptation, or the body is sinful, and I do not subscribe to that ideology. I think that the body is a huge tool that isn't just there to tempt us into sin. It's there to actually give us a unification to our souls, a unification to our brains, unification to our hearts. You know, that is what it is there for. That's why laughing feels so good and crying feels so good once you've done it, you know, and that's why dancing is a huge outlet to music, you know. These are things that you do with your body, and your body is basically doing the same thing that any practice would do. It's rewiring your brain, you know, and I think just hearing that come out of my mouth right now, having that knowledge that what you do with your body affects your mind and your wellness, is a really important thing to remind yourselves. You know, during quarantine in particular, a lot of us aren't going to be able to just go, you know, to the gym, or go to their favorite tree in the park. You know, so but that doesn't mean that we can't connect with our bodies. You know, part of the beauty of sitting under your favorite tree at the park is not just the park, it's your body, you know, and our bodies we carry with us wherever we go, in quarantine or not, you know. And so yeah, just see, like, test yourself, see what it feels like to pause when you start to get anxious watching the news, you know. See what it feels like to just sit in a quiet room with the TV off, you know, and observe what's happening in your body. Observe it without judgment. Observe it with the knowledge that you are protected, and observe it with the knowledge that your body can get you out of your stress at any point. At any point, you know, and whatever your body is calling on you to do, as long as it's not violent or anything like that, is likely something that's going to help you, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, kind of going off of that, I definitely think that this is a really good opportunity for us to focus on like our inner peace with our bodies, because that will lead to that outer peace in the world.
Yeah. And part of that inner peace is it comes with sort of this next step that I want to talk about, which is validation. Validation is just reflecting other people's feelings. And, you know, sometimes we need to reflect those feelings to ourselves, you know, and tell ourselves, I'm scared, you know, I'm nervous about the future. these are trying times, you know? And I think a lot of people might have this sensibility of, I just need to be positive. I just need to be as positive as possible. You cannot strangle positivity out of this situation. Positivity will come naturally once you access a peace practice that is going to give you that space in order to be genuinely optimistic, you know? So if you're feeling, you know, the weight of this crisis, be honest with yourself. When you lie to yourself, you're just setting yourself back, you know? And so, and remember that peace is not an argument, you know? Like this is not me telling you that your feelings of fear are wrong, you know? Um, they're not wrong or right, you know? But what's important to remember is that multiple things can be true at the same time, you know? It could be true that you're feeling fear. It can also be true that there is a way out of this, you know? It can also be true that you can experience peace on the very same moment that you're experiencing fear, because that is the nature of humanity, of the reality that we live in. Everything has an opposite pole. Everything has, you know, where there's peace, there is fear. Where there is a crisis, there is a solution. Where there is love, there is violence, you know? Like these things exist in communion with one another. It's just about a matter of where you put your focus, and sort of getting back to that place where you're focused on peace sometimes requires us to be honest with what the opposite side of that pole looks like, you know? And in particular, this sort of like is an important thing to remember, as far as those who live with their partners or live with roommates, because there are going to be times that you're going to need to, in order to create peace in your household, to reflect your roommates or your partner's feelings, you know? People can't be going around in any kind of enclosed environment feeling like they can't express their emotions or feeling like they aren't seen. And the good news about this situation that we're in is that whereas it would have been challenging before in a pre-COVID-19 situation, it's become incredibly easy for us now to empathize with one another, and validating each other and seeing other people is a lot easier, because we can just basically say, I know, we're all sharing this experience. It's scary, you know? And there is so much power in that one line. Validation can sound like a lot of things, but a lot of times it sounds like, I understand that you're feeling scared because this level of uncertainty is got us all feeling like fish out of water, you know? It's that I understand that because XYZ. That's what validation sounds like. It could be like, I can tell that you're anxious because you're not like this all the time. But guess what? You're not going to be, because I understand, and we're going to get through this together. You know, like diffuses situations immediately. Yeah, like understanding that people's reactions make sense, because fear is essentially like crazy making, you know, and the through line out of that is basically just to let people know this is something that we're experiencing together, but it doesn't have to be, and it won't be, because the reality is that this is not going to go on forever. You still there?
Yeah, no, I really agree with everything that you're saying, and I think this is a really good chance for us to be compassionate against like ourselves. I think that's really important. That's a really good way to practice that empathy, is to give that compassion to yourself. I think a lot of us don't do that. But then also to have that empathy for the other people in the situation. And I do think it definitely makes it easier since we are going through this very similar time together. It does remind me back to the summertime from an experience where, you know, I consider myself to be kind of like an empath. And there was a situation where I kind of thought I understood how things were. And then after a few weeks of digesting it, I realized that there was a whole nother perspective of it, that I had a blind spot. And so my question for you becomes, how can people work on their empathy independently in order to kind of curb these blind spots or just to improve their empathy skill?
Yeah. I mean, all of these steps that we mentioned in episode 1 and you know, what we're going to be going through here with the healthy boundaries, it all helps develop your empathy. There's not just one way to do it, thank God, you know. But I mean, basically everything that I'm talking about is going to help people have more empathy with one another. But validation is one of those things that opens the door immediately, because you don't have to necessarily believe what you're saying, you know, because a lot of times it's incredibly difficult, you know, for us to want to say, you know, this is something that's uncertain, you know, we're all scared here, you know, but there are so many people that are experiencing the same thing and using the same language to describe the situation, that the empathy is going to come naturally, you know. But the empathy sort of activates when we feel seen, you know. And anytime that we give that to somebody else, it comes back to us. It comes back to us. It does, you know. It's just, you know, an essential tenet. Like, you treat people the way you want to be treated. What goes around comes around. These things exist for a reason, because when we give somebody else empathy, that empathy is like a root that is grown inside us, and we nurture it by continuing to do these steps, by continuing to validate people, continuing to see people. One of the my little pro tips actually is, like, the people who need to be seen the most are the people that are on the phone. Essential employees and essential businesses who are telephone representatives or retail workers or insurance agents or anybody that's on the phone, anybody that you call, you know, that is a huge opportunity for you to practice validation and to learn what it feels like to respect another person's boundaries. And that's just as simple as just saying, like, listen, I just first want to thank you so much for coming into work today. I understand that we're living in uncertain times and your life has value, because all of us have value. And imagine saying that to a telephone representative. I've said that to a few of them by now. And there's just like this long pause and usually a deep breath and a thank you. So you start to see where when you validate somebody, they immediately get grounded, and then they turn around and start validating you and your experience. So although these steps are sort of, you know, we're calling them steps, the reality is that one feeds the other, you know, and all of them feed empathy, all of them.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I think, you know, it is really important to kind of identify people's boundaries in order to kind of step in their shoes.
Yeah.
And tell them that you know that you see that.
Exactly. The other important thing in this is to sort of know your limits, there's a temptation for a lot of people, including empaths, to really give in this situation, and like people pleasers as well. And scholars, researchers, artists, creatives, people who have that connection to their heart tend to want to like save everybody. Don't do that. We're not here to save everybody. We can't possibly save everybody. What we can do is to model the type of behavior that we want to see in the world, and to help people feel seen. But that does not mean that we need to exhaust ourselves into complete depletion. That depletion is going to put us out of the game, you know. And we need people like you. We need empaths. We need like people who have space to be sensitive to others, you know. So really make sure that you're nurturing your time, and not just for others, but for yourself. This is something I have to tell myself a lot, you know, excuse me, because there is that temptation to just give all you got, but we have to remember to give some of that to ourselves too. One of the ways that this sort of folds into the conversation on boundaries is using the intersection of time and energy to serve you and the people around you. And that is just a bit of a complicated way of saying, tell people how much time you need when you need it. Time is something that we all understand. It's impartial. We all get it. And it usually starts with a question of, where is my bandwidth right now? Or if you're talking to somebody else, where is your bandwidth right now? You know, let's first make sure that we actually have space to talk about our feelings, you know, because you need to, that's just like, you don't want to overstretch somebody. You don't want to push somebody past their limits. So we can access these things if we can just ask ourselves that question, like, where am I right now? A lot of times you'll know right away, I feel exhausted. I'm done. I have, you know, about 20 minutes in me. I need a nap. Like, whatever it is, you'll know. But the best way to navigate that is to just put a time on it. Tell someone, I need about 5 minutes and then we can talk. Or, you know, I need to sleep on this. Let's talk in the morning. Or we can talk for about 20 minutes and then I need a break. And the thing about time too is time is flexible. So you could say, you know what, I've hit my limit a little sooner than I expected. I need to take about a 5-minute break. And then I'll get back, you know, and use that time. Like, this is sort of training your brain to really value what you do with your time. And there is nothing more it's the most beautiful thing about peacemaking is that you really, 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 really learn to value your time and your energy, and knowing your limits and talking about your limits and with respect to time is the best way for you to begin to really value and appreciate the time that you have.
For sure. And I mean, as somebody who has struggled with like codependency throughout my life, I definitely really resonate with, you know, you have to fill your cup up first before you can be there for others.
Yeah.
You know, it is really important to communicate those limits with others.
100%.
And communicating that with yourself as well. You need to identify that yourself. You have to be conscious of what those limits are. I think some of us don't really identify that, and we overexhaust ourselves. My question
This is not the time to do it.
No, definitely not. My question becomes, you can be the best communicator there is, but what about when you're dealing with somebody who isn't communicating what their boundaries are? How can you work with that person to
First of all, I want to say
help
that
them?
none of the stuff that I'm mentioning is about being the best. That's
Right.
That's a trap, this is not about being the best at anything. This is not about mastering it. This is about creating a practice. With any practice, you're not going to see results right away. With some of these things, you may, depending on the person, cherish those moments. But the reality is that this is something that we want to exist long term, past coronavirus, past quarantine, and carry with us into our future lives. That is something that transforms us, and that's what practices do. And beginning to remove this mentality of having to be the best at something gives us the freedom to really learn what this practice is trying to teach us, but as far as like people who aren't really resonating with this practice that you're doing, you are not responsible to people who are not ready to hear you. You really are not. The best way that I've found is to really just be clear about what your limits are, and clear about what your boundaries are. And sometimes that means like over explaining, like I need 20 minutes. During that 20 minutes, I'm going to bring myself to a place of peace where I'll be able to talk to you more about this, but I can't talk to you now, and what you've done there is you just removed the judgment. The thing that is most activating for people who are already activated is when they feel judged, and when you bring something in like just time, and where you're at, that removes the judgment from the situation. They know where you're at, and moving on from there, there's a very clear limit. If they don't want to respect your limits, you're really going to have to probably do a little bit more work than them, unfortunately. And that work is work on you, not for them. You're at this point making sure that you're protecting yourself and not moving into this identification of needing to solve their problems for them.
Right. No, I think just to clarify, I'm more curious when somebody isn't communicating their own boundaries, and that's something that they're not disrespecting yours necessarily, but that you need to better know their boundaries, that they're not communicating their boundaries. How can we encourage them to become better at communicating their boundaries?
You just ask them, where's your bandwidth right now? That's it. It's just that inciting question that allows them to think like, oh, where is it? What do I have capacity for right now?
Okay, so by leading by example is what your answer is. Okay.
Yeah. You just model what you would do for yourself, and that modeling is sort of an entry point for that person to begin their own practice, and that will help them start their practice without even knowing it.
Okay.
And your assistance at that point is from a distance. You're not there trying to take care of every single aspect of their non-existent or growing peace practice. You're basically just like, wait, where's your boundary right now? Like, where is your limit?
Right. You want to be a lighthouse, not a tugboat.
What's that?
You want to be a lighthouse, not a tugboat.
Yeah. Expand on that. I like that. I love analogy.
So I heard this from some other speaker before. I can't remember who it was. But basically it's better to be, this example, this guide, than to pull people along in the direction that you want them to. You want to be a lighthouse. If they come to you and they use you, that's great. If not, they're going to do their own thing. You can't be pulling people along like a tugboat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you don't strain yourself, you know? And yeah, that's, I mean, as far as it comes to boundaries, that's one of the ways that I've found to be most effective, is to just ask people, where's your boundary right now, before you start talking to them. You know, we have this tendency to just tell someone, like call someone and be like, hey, I need to vent, you know, and you just unload on these friends, thinking to yourself,
I think some people don't even preface with "I need to vent." I think that you're already going farther into. I think some people just explode.
and listen, like, I understand needing to vent, but that's where that's one of many opportunities that we have to turn this crisis into an opportunity for peace, and developing and strengthening our relationships in a foundation of peace. Because that person that you ask, hey, I need to vent, but I want to check in with you. Where's your bandwidth right now? You know, that person is going to take that and turn it around and give it to the next person, and then give it to their roommate, and then give it to their mom, and then give it to their boss, you know? So it's this understanding that when we start to develop our peace practice, what we're doing is we are creating peace throughout the world, you know? Throughout the world, especially since we're all connecting with one another online. You know, we are empowered to really bridge that gap between our inner peace and world peace.
Right,
Because
it's like the ripple effect.
Exactly, because world peace depends on us sharing with one another, you know, and that's what we're doing. You know, that's why I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and doing these Facebook Live things, you know, because I really feel like there's a huge opportunity for people to really bridge that gap between inner peace and world peace. And all that gap is awareness. That's it. It's awareness, and it's practice, you know. And we tend to think of them as separate, right? They're not separate. They never have been, never will be, never, like, certainly aren't now, you know. And so, yeah, you're right. Lighthouse, tugboat, be the lighthouse, be the lighthouse. Yep. I love that. The last one I wanted to go through, because we're getting towards the end of an hour now. We got to learn to make these shorter. We're going so long.
You have so much to share. That's why.
I know. But the last one is, you know, first we started to think of the impartiality of time. The next thing to think about is space, right? Especially in quarantine. We really need to take an inventory of our space, and who we are and who we want to be in our space, who we are adjusting to. A lot of people are going to be working from home. A lot of people are going to have to get used to, like, sanitizing their space. And so sitting down to have a serious conversation with your roommates or your partner, whoever it is that you're living with, to ask them, hey, when would be a good time for you to sit down and have a talk about taking inventory of the space? If you were to say that to your roommate, they'd be like, what? But what you're basically doing is creating a peace initiative, basically, because you're telling them, hey, I want to sit down and hear how we can best cohabitate, you know, and think critically about the space that we have, you know, and the new responsibilities that we are all sharing, you know. And I mean, that to me, when I was writing this all out, I was so excited, because, like, ooh, it's like peacemaking 101, to sit down with a group of people who are coming from different experiences, and talking to them about what we can share and how we can best share it.
Right.
Like, that's so exciting for me. I haven't done this yet with my boyfriend, but I told him, like, I'm so excited.
You love the opportunity.
I'm so excited to, like, sit down and have our space inventory. What was that?
You love the opportunity.
Yeah, I do.
So are you going to do that tonight then?
It's either going to be tonight or tomorrow.
Well, good luck with that. You have to update us on how that goes.
I will. But I mean, the examples of this is just like, if you're an introvert, see if you can talk to your roommates about being like, hey, can I have this space dedicated for an hour, you know? And you know, check in with them, see if they can just like go in their room for an hour, you know? Or maybe you have a dedicated office space, like you're all working, you have a dedicated office space where it's like, that's the office space. Or maybe you all have your own separate offices in your rooms, you know? If you need to take a phone call, let's commit to everybody taking their personal phone calls in their bedrooms, you know, or on the patio if you have a patio. We really want to make sure that we're respecting each other's space, and doing so in a way that respects time, because when we connect our peace process to these things that we all can connect to, time, space, our bandwidth, you know, it makes practicing healthy boundaries and makes our peace practice a whole lot easier. There's no reason for this to be complicated. In Spanish, we have a saying that's no se debe complicarse la vida, you know, like there's no reason to complicate your life. So I really hope that these tools will sort of help people to remove the complications that we're all experiencing and sort of running through in our brains, because it doesn't have to be that way. It just does not, especially when the culture that we're living now in is our homes, you know? We have like this micro culture to really nurture and find a way that how it could best suit ourselves as we build our lives on a foundation of peace and awareness of peace and awareness of our place in the human race and in the world. So, yeah, I'm super excited to do this.
I'm excited for you.
Thanks.
Now, so when I think about this, I think people in this circumstance, I think, have maybe one of two situations going on. The first is, like you said, that they're living with other people and now having to adjust to how do we share this space.
Yeah.
What about those people experiencing this more in isolation, where they live alone and now they're not able to connect with their friends? And so now their boundaries are like completely avoided. Like now their space is too much. What do you have to say for those people in this circumstance?
I know where you are. I understand your experience. I've been there myself. It is confusing because it's like you have all this freedom in the world, but it's too much, you know? And so for those people, understanding, you know, the first step that we went through, grounding, is listening to your body, you know? There are advantages to solitary isolation, and when it comes to developing a peace practice, and that's that you can really hone in on what your body is telling you. You can hone in on where your bandwidth is. What becomes more important than, you know, anything is developing a routine and creating time for clarity for yourself, and to act on that clarity. You know, a lot of times it's tempting for us to just get distracted and to fall into old habits that are, quite frankly, destructive in a lot of cases. And there are innumerable ways for us to learn to ground, to learn more. The good thing is that we have access to community still, you know, hopping on a Facebook Live, or FaceTiming somebody, or calling somebody, or making sure that when you do have to call somebody that you may not even know, that you make sure that they see you, you know, and treat you, you know, the way you want to be treated. There are a lot of opportunities for us to really take isolation as an opportunity to really hone in on what our definition of peace is. And to really develop from there a routine of peace. That's what all of these steps are. Every single episode that we're going to be talking about with this thing is going to be about creating a peace practice, like a real routine that you can incorporate into every part of your day, every part of your life. And that's really the end goal here. So keep listening. You know, if you guys are still tuning in after about an hour, or if you're going to rewatch this later, let us know what is coming up for you. You know, let us know what you want to hear more about, because we're here to connect. We're here to help you create a peace practice that is good for you and the life that you live. And that's something that we're just going to have to arrive at together. I have all the tools that I've learned, but there are plenty of other people who have tools that they've learned as well. And that's why the immersive peace research that I've done, and the peace advocacy and the creating peace initiatives that I've done has all been in community with people. And when we start to feel like we're not moving anywhere is when we are not connected to community.
Exactly. I think we need to remind everyone listening that, you know, these first few episodes have kind of just been a lot of information coming from you, but really going forward, what we would like this to be is this conversation. You know, we want to hear everything that you have to share, but I think we all can be inspired when we're all conversing about these topics.
Yeah.
So I definitely encourage anyone listening to come and join us on that Zoom. Yeah.
And really remember that I am not here to tell you what is. Josie and I both are here to support people in creating in, you know, everything that we talked about, in feeling seen and feeling heard and feeling understood, feeling grounded, feeling comfortable getting more vulnerable, comfortable expressing their needs to the people around them. Like that's what I see as an important part of what we're all going through right now. But you may have some other thing that you think is important that I'm not mentioning, you know. Let us know. Definitely let us know, because likely there is a lot that I can learn from you too, you know.
Yes, very well put. So do you have any closing words as we're approaching the end of our episode 2?
This one, I mean, I hope it's not too challenging for people, but have fun with it. I have learned to really enjoy when I see opportunities for peace, when I see opportunities for community, and when I see opportunities for joy. You know, all of these things are acts of peace. We tend to think of peace as just like the leaders of peace movements, the Dalai Lama, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, like all these people. That's what we sort of connect to peace, and we think nonviolence and peace and calm. But I would really encourage people to, if you're going to be continuing to go through this stuff with us, think about what your definition of peace is, and act on that. And together, hopefully, we can all feel peaceful together, and then in turn, create a more peaceful world.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Tyler. I think that you've given us a lot to work with in order to, you know, make that bottoms up way of peace, not just the Dalai Lama. We all are peacemakers here.
No one's expecting anybody to be a hero. No one's expecting anybody here to get it right, because there's nothing to get right. There's nothing to master. There is no right and wrong. There just is what we personally need to feel at peace in ourselves and in our communities and in our homes. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been
Yeah, I
so
hope
great
this was really
chatting with you
helpful.
again.
I want to find in the future, hopefully, some ways that we can like get these to be a little bit shorter, because you're right, this is a lot of information for people to digest.
I think we just need to condense.
Yeah.
Maybe this could have been a
Yeah.
two-part.
Yeah, this probably could
But
have been a two-parter.
great material. I think it's a great foundation for us to start with more information, and then as we build on, I think it'll be maybe less information from your end and more community conversation. So I think this is
I really hope
fantastic
for
as it's
that.
been
I
going.
honestly do. I really hope that people will help us guide these. You know, this is something that we started up real quick and are still figuring out as we go along. And the best way for us to do that, I think, is to just get people involved. Let us know what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to make the announcement that originally we had talked about different days, but now we're going to be sticking with Saturdays at 11:11 a.m. Central Standard Time.
Yeah.
And we definitely hope to have some people join our conversation in these future episodes. That would be fantastic.
And if you're listening to a replay, go ahead and put like your input in the comments so that we can be in community together and do this together.
That's what's number one, is community.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and I hope your boundaries chat goes well.
My space inventory.
Yeah, your space inventory.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
And if anyone else has that, maybe comment below. Tell us how it went.
Yeah, I like to think of it as this. I don't know if you saw Broad City, but in like one of the last episodes of Broad City, they had Alana and Lincoln sat down and had dinner and had this very serious conversation about like, this is what I need, this is what I need, this is what I need, this is what I need. I can give you this. Okay, I can accept that. I can give you that. And of course, it didn't work out great for Alana and Lincoln, but a lot of things that we, the more clarity that we can offer the people that we live with for what we need, and the more flexibility that we can offer in creating the compromises that will serve everybody, the better off we'll be. The better off we'll be.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And I hope everyone takes care.
What's that?
I said, I hope everyone watching takes care.
Yeah, take care of yourselves.
Stay safe.
Wash those damn hands, sanitize, and stay safe. And we'll talk to you again soon in about a week.
Talk to you soon. Peace and
All right,
blessings.
bye, guys.
Bye.